Deborah and Kathy, thanks so much for joining us. It's so lovely to see you here in Portugal.
We're happy to be here. in
Thrilled
Portugal.
to finally be here.
Did you catch our, every single video I'm talking about our rainy spring? Did you catch it? You did catch a couple of weeks of the rainy
We
spring,
did.
didn't you?
In April, we did catch enough of it not to enjoy it.
Yeah.
But we were fortunate. We didn't get, I think, the brunt of it that most of you endured.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky because I spent about a couple of weeks in Africa in January. So I had some beautiful sunny style stuff, and then came back and it was a solid 3 months of rain. It was horrendous. We've never
But it was like
experienced.
that. Where in the U.S., it was very cold and rainy. So, and it was unusual for the Carolinas. So
All right.
it was disappointing to get here and have another linger a little further. So
Yeah, we had people who actually just left halfway through their scouting trip. They're like, I can't do this. So just left.
yeah.
Well, the good news is for those of us that are here now and endured some portion of it or all of it, at least the levees and everything are full. So we should be good for a while.
Yeah, 97% full. It's amazing. And even your dam down there in the west, which we could talk about, I think it was up to about 60%, which is unheard of. It was at 8% before. So it's really
Yeah.
great to hear.
Yeah.
Wow.
The barraging. But it's nice. I mean, we've got like t-shirt weather, huh? It's beautiful
Yes.
now.
Yes.
Okay, so you talked about the Carolinas, Kathy. That's where you guys came from, right? Both of
Yes.
them. The north one or the south one?
So we started in South Carolina. We built a home there, and then we moved from there to North Carolina for various reasons. And then we were there before the story starts.
Yeah. Just outside of Charlotte.
Okay, that's beautiful. Yeah, I know Charlotte. I've been there. I told you guys before. Yeah, so I've got an idea of where you're at. But how did the story start? Like, where did Portugal rear its beautiful head?
So as we were approaching retirement for both of us, we had a lovely home in the Charlotte area and really enjoyed it. It provided us a lot of what we were looking for. But originally, we're both from Rhode Island, so we're very much used to being by the ocean.
Uh-huh.
And Charlotte is, about 3 hours inland of that. So part of the consideration was we want to be by the ocean again for retirement. And we started to look up and down the East Coast. That's primarily where we've lived most of our lives. And just we weren't able to find, we looked in a number of places and weren't able to find anything that really kind of called us and spoke to us.
I'm curious, where did you look? Were you like Richmond and Virginia and what's it?
Well, we looked obviously more in the Carolinas, but closer to the coast. So, Hilton Head area, Myrtle Beach,
all the way
Charleston,
down
uh,
Island.
looked in Georgia, we looked in Florida.
Okay.
Really kind of because we like the warmer weather. So we were kind of trying to stay in that area. And just really, we had friends that had moved to Florida and other places, and we tried to kind of make that work, but it just wasn't coming together.
It didn't feel right.
Yeah.
Have you
So
heard of Have you heard of the villages?
Yes, we have, but that is, yes,
That's
we have.
different. That's very different. Yeah.
And I'm sure it's lovely for some people.
Yeah, just for you guys out there who don't know what the villages are, it is called the villages, isn't it?
It
Yes.
is, yeah.
Yeah, it's like this town with 150,000 retired people, and they all drive around in their little mini, what do they call them? Those
Golf carts,
golf
Yes.
carts. Yeah, have golf cart races and crazy parties and stuff.
parades,
So-
and yeah.
That
Well, we
sounds
came
cool.
from a community that was similar to that. We only had 80 homes in it, and it was like being back in college for adults.
Yeah.
And when Deb came back from work and everything, she goes, "Oh, this is way too tight."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, like
So,
everybody's
yeah.
in each other's business and stuff like that, I guess.
exactly.
A little bit, I think, we were very active, but active in a lot of different ways, and we love to explore. And so, we don't, something like the villages that's very self-contained isn't what we were looking for.
Sure, right. So
I'm sure
exploring.
it's great for a lot of people, but just it wasn't what we were looking for.
Yeah, I saw a YouTube video about it, and they looked like they were having a whale of a time. It was really great fun. But yeah,
I'm sure there's some parties happening there, but
It's active, but like Deb said, it's contained.
yeah.
so
we
you were exploring, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we've done a good amount of travel throughout Europe over the years and really enjoy it. So it's always been kind of a 7-hour flight to go on these holidays. And so the idea popped into my head that, maybe as opposed to staying in the States, we might have at least some of our retirement in Europe. I was a little bit more open initially to the idea of having full-time retirement in Europe. And I'm Portuguese. Both grandparents on both sides were born in Portugal, and so if we were going to go to Europe as a home base or as a place to explore more, Portugal made sense. We had been here and loved it, so we kind of
Have you been
started
to
to
your
build that idea.
Have you been to your terra, your land where your family's from?
I have, yeah. My dad's side of the family is from the Azores.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
So we've gone to San Miguel years ago. My mom's side of the family is from outside of Porto. So we have not yet gotten there, but we will soon put that on the list.
Yeah, yeah. We go up to my wife's terra up near Castelo Branco every couple of years and just check out all the cousins and stuff, and it's really fun. It's really lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I kind of floated the idea. And in the meantime, I had been doing a little behind the scenes exploration just to get some information for myself. And I found your channel, actually, and others, and started to get more information specifically about the Algarve because we had been to Portugal. We'd been to the Azores, as I mentioned. We had been to mainland Portugal and explored Cascais and Lisboa, and we were in the Algarve. But when you're thinking about moving somewhere, it's different, right? So one of the things that I found you provided, and kind of why we got connected eventually, was you really talked about living in an area versus vacationing in an area. And a lot of the videos are more about vacationing and holidays. So the information about where do you do your shopping and where are there schools and churches and how is it to get around and parking and things like that was helpful. So I mentioned the option to Kathy. We ended up deciding it was something we wanted to explore more. Got in touch with Nick Smith and came out in August of 24, August of last year.
August 26th, actually.
You make it sound so easy, Deb.
Well,
So-
it's a long process. The whole thing is a long process. And for me, I had a little bit of a head start, and then Kathy was open to the idea, but I think initially more maybe 6 months here, 6 months in the States, and keeping a foot there. And it was only when we were here on the scouting trip that it kind of came to her that no, this is where we belong and this is what we should do.
It felt
So
right.
it wasn't a visa issue or anything like that. It was just the fact that you felt that you could really live here, Kathy. Is that right?
Yes, that's exactly right. I mean, like we'll tell a little story here. We took the little trip out to the Benagil caves. We came back and we're sitting in the marina, and we had been here like 2 or 3 days. And I just said, yes, I can do this and I can make the move. And it just hit me. And
what do you think it was?
I've never looked back.
But what do you think it was? It was just actually being here and not watching videos back on YouTube and stuff, but actually being physically here, or was it something about the place that just resonated with you?
No, I think it was just physically being here. The videos and all the information that you get and the beauty and the like we travel a lot, so you look at things from a different lens sometimes. But my heart landed here. I mean, like Deb mentioned, we look up and down the East Coast. We could not find an area that we actually got in the car to go look at a house. And here we are. We flew all the way over here. We're in Portugal, and we're driving around. In the first few days, it was with Nick Smith, and we always took a break throughout our process just to kind of prep. And it was just to be on the ocean, to see the dolphins, to see the beauty from the water side, and then to sit in the marina and think, I could live here every day and do this every day with no effort. It just resonated with my heart then.
You commented on a video that we're going to talk about the dogs in a second, guys. So
they're anxious to get involved now.
Yeah. We talked about, I posted a photograph on my Instagram this morning because I was just sitting reveling in the beauty, and I've been here 24 years now, and I still pinch myself every day, and I just love it so much. And it was so nice that you commented on that and saying, "Hey, wow, we really here. I've seen your photograph today, and we really here, and we can experience it as well." So that is lovely to hear. Um, but going back to that sort of decision when you were here on your scouting trip, um, it doesn't sound like anything was pushing you away from the States. It sounded like something was pulling you to Portugal. You just wanted to retire by the beach, basically, right?
Yeah, I think it was, well, certainly getting back to the ocean was important to both of us. The Algarve gives you that. And an ocean that's very familiar to us, having been from Rhode Island. That cold Atlantic water I enjoy. Not
I'm
Kathy
not
as
a fan of
much.
it. I prefer the Caribbean, but it's okay.
But no, there was absolutely nothing. We started the process of kind of thinking about retirement and where we would go back in February of 24. So it was really about kind of thinking positively about where we wanted to spend time in our retirement. It wasn't, and leaving the States wasn't about running away from anything. We have a lot of friends and family, and that was kind of part of obviously the harder part is leaving friends and family, or creating a greater distance. You never leave them. You create a greater distance between you. But it was about coming somewhere that attracted us and really captured our heart, as Kathy said. And it's not just the ocean; it's the
Everything.
people, it's the food, it's the weather,
The respect that people have for each other.
yeah, the culture here. And one of the things that strikes us is there's kind of a lack of drama, right? There's respect that people have for each other. I'll use the word tolerance, but it's not tolerance. It's kind of a little bit of a going back in time, and we have not experienced a lot of conflict. People just have I was helping a woman the other day with some groceries to her car, and she was thankful for it, and I was happy to help. And it's just everyone holds a door open and does this. It's just polite, a very polite society, and it's nice. We're enjoying that.
I think it's also very much how you are in society as well. Like you guys are clearly very kind and loving people, and I think that's a really important way to approach Portugal as well. Because some people come here and it's not for them, and they say they have a different experience. So I think it's also down to us how are we going to, because you'll get perceived in different ways.
Absolutely.
But were there any parts of the whole daunting relocation process, like moving your entire house, that kind of kept you up at night before? Because I mean, it's a massive thing, isn't it?
It is.
Yes.
We
It's a
were here-
massive project.
We were
Yeah.
here in late August to early September for the scouting trip, if you will. We had provided Nick and Duarte a list of properties that we thought we were
Massive
interested in.
spreadsheet.
Yeah.
All right.
Of things we thought we'd like to see. And we knew we wanted to be kind of central to Western Algarve because the drama of the cliffs and just other things. And so it was focused in that area. But we were here from August to September. We ended up we can chat about how we ended up finding our place, but we did find a place during that time. Went back to the States knowing we had an accepted offer, and that process would continue with Nick and Duarte's help here in Portugal. And then our job was to go back to the States and really put a plan together for, okay, this is now real, and we're going to
Dismantle everything.
everything. We had a
Were you
large
gonna
home outside of Charlotte, and we started the process of, we need to sell the home. We need to do that. We're both kind of project management people. So we literally had this work plan that had about 11 work streams. We divided and conquered, and there's a lot to do. And one thing I'll say to people is if you don't really want to do it and you're not doing it for a positive reason, it's a lot of work.
It's hard.
It's a lot to do to kind of dismantle, if you will, or disassociate from a lot of things. There's a lot of legal aspects. There's a lot of financial aspects. There's all things to consider in addition to selling your things and deciding what you're taking, what you're not taking. And so it's a process that we worked hard at from
That's a good
September
question.
till
Deb?
January.
Sorry, there's a good question. Did you sell everything before you came and bought it here, or did you ship stuff over?
Sold it all
We sold
All right.
everything except literally tomorrow.
tomorrow.
tomorrow, fingers crossed. We've been here now 7 weeks and 4 days. um, and our things are coming tomorrow. The only things we shipped were 2 pallets, and a pallet is essentially a 4x4 by
Yeah, about 700 pounds.
6 feet high. So 2 of those
Yeah.
we shipped through a company.
Uh-huh.
Tried to time that so it wouldn't get here before us. We'd get here first, and I think again it worked out pretty well. But other than that, we sold a household full and kind of a lifetime's full of things, and kept only those things that were most important. And of
Because that
course,
must have been hard. That must have been
it's-
really hard.
it's
Letting
it
go,
was hard. It was hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
it's physically demanding, but it's emotionally, you're letting go of a lot of things. I found it kind of cathartic. I found that letting go of a lot of material things, it actually relieves stress for me. You found it more difficult, I think,
I did.
emotionally.
Yeah. I mean, but when you're dragging things around from your great grandmother,
Yeah.
and but you know what? It makes you reevaluate the things that are really most important, and to whom in the family those things would be important to. And if no one, then you have to let it go. I mean, Rabina actually was a great resource for us that we had met through Nick. And you guys will talk about that a little bit, but and it's like if you have a day that's hard and you can't seem to make a decision on it, put it aside and come back to it. And over the course of those 6 months, it worked perfectly.
Because
So
Sabina, who we've had on the channel before, if you guys are following closely out there, she and her husband have been on the channel walking across the Algarve with us, and she's an organizer, because that what she did for a living, wasn't it? She organized people's lives, and so that really is helpful to have someone like that helping you. That's great.
Yes.
yes.
So, like, I'm just thinking of other challenges. You've only been here 7 weeks, right? How's the language been?
We we got here in early April. But the process of, I mean, obviously there's the visa process. We both are on D7 visas.
Uh-huh.
And I guess one of the things that we feel like we did well, not only the work plan we had of the things that we had to do, we also knew we wanted to do a lot of research and understand things for ourselves, and yet use resources that clearly knew what they were doing. From a real estate perspective, Nick and Duarte clearly knew what they were doing, and we relied on them. Through them and Algarve Addicts, we were introduced to Ana Teresa Pereira, and she was our kind of legal resource, both for the purchase of the home, but also
Yeah.
the D7 visa process.
Our Nick.
And I've got my citizenship documentation is already in through Anna. So that's in process. So
How does that work? Because you've got a Portuguese passport, or no? You obviously
I
applying
don't
for a
yet.
Yeah.
I hope to have it. The documentation went in December in parallel with the visa. So she thinks it'll be, it could be about a year, just because it takes that much time. It's not complicated because clearly I meet all the requirements. It's just a matter of the time that it takes for the government to get to that.
Yeah. And you seem to have sailed through the D7 process, because I mean, is it about 6 months since when did you say August to April?
It was August to April, kind of start to finish, or September to April, start to finish. But the visa process, we started. Anna laid out for us exactly what we needed to do, so we collected that documentation. We were fortunate to get our appointment with VFS, which
In
is
Washington.
Yeah.
We were in Washington.
That's
We had
the
to fly up for that.
intermediary company,
Yeah.
between you and the Portuguese government. And so we got an appointment in November in Washington, D.C., went to the appointment, submitted all our documents, and then it's just wait. And we were told it would be about 3 months. And so we were then starting to plan the trip for, okay, well, if it's 3 months and if there's holidays, it might lag a little. So we were kind of looking at, we really shouldn't plan anything until February or March. And then as things worked out, it made more sense for early April. And the timing of things really worked out well.
A lot of people get really caught up on the whole accommodation section of the D7 visa. And so when you applied when was it, in September, huh?
We actually put the application in October. We had
October,
collected the
sorry.
documentation in September. We put it in October.
So how did you prove your accommodation? Had you bought a house here already, or you had a long-term lease?
We had the signed offer letter essentially on this property. And so we hadn't yet purchased the closing was in December. So we knew we could supplement that if we needed to. And we had a letter in there that indicated, here's our signed offer letter. Here's the contract. And we also had a letter that explained the closing date was set. Anna had attested to that, and we can provide further documentation and proof of purchase if needed later.
Excellent. And then obviously that must have been a happy day when that visa came through, right?
That was one of there were several kind of key hurdles. Getting the visa was one of them. We actually
Closing the deal here.
Yeah, that was pretty easy. Just, getting through the real estate process was, once we picked the place and got a signed offer, an agreement on the offer, and Nick and Anna really they ran with the inspections, and we were back in the States doing what we had to do. And that's where we trusted the resources that we had been working with. So with that part of it was not a lot of effort on our side.
We make decisions pretty quickly. So
Yeah.
we went back and forth with a lot.
Yeah, I think that, waiting on the D7 and really everything's kind of a timing, a sequencing issue. When are you going to get your visa? When are you going to book flights? When are you going to trust? And in our case, and I know we'll talk about it a little bit later, in our case, we had pets to consider. How are we getting them there? So this sequencing of key documentation pieces was really the most stressful part and kind of the most tricky part for us to maneuver.
This is where we can geek out in software and have Gantt charts and stuff, so like dependencies and all
yeah.
kinds of cool stuff. Yeah, because it is, it's a project and you got to manage it, right? So it's a project management.
100%.
Our lists were massive. But I mean, talk about the D7 process. I mean, we had made the commitment, we were buying the place, but trying to get that appointment was hard. And every day it would be like, well, let's try today. Like one morning, like in October, we had sold the house, right? So we were here, we left here like September 9th. Within a week, then we put our house on the market. We sold it October 14th.
We sold it in a week.
Wow, that was lucky, yeah.
Yeah. And so then, but we were fortunate enough to be able to stay in our home until January 15th or something. So, but all of that aside, so every day it's like, how are we going to get this appointment? And they're really hard to come by. And I just got lucky because then I said, oh, here we go. And, things opened up, and then we made mistakes trying to get that appointment online. Deb got hers through, and then I couldn't get mine through. So we made mistakes. But because of the internet, I found somebody that had posted an email address, and I used that email address to someone in Washington and explained the situation that my wife actually had gotten her appointment, but I couldn't get through. So they go, no problem, use this email and you come with her and submit all your documentation.
Oh, amazing.
It is amazing, but those kinds of things have to fall into place for you but it was effort on our part. It's like, just like, let's just check today. I don't know how we're going to get this appointment, but we weren't panicking about it just yet. but that was a key thing, to have that appointment and then for me to find that email.
Very few people get stuck in a loop and then they just go round and round and round. They can't get over it. But that's unfortunate. But these days I've heard that you get your, the minute you apply for through VFS, you actually get, they'll give you an appointment, so you don't have to find for it anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've heard that as well from some people, and then from others. I think it may matter which VFS office you're affiliated with. I know I heard that from some people that were getting appointments in San Francisco or in New England. But in DC, I heard from others that they weren't giving the appointment. So I don't know. I think you still need to kind of maybe run some parallel paths just to make sure you're getting what you need.
Yeah, it's difficult for us to give advice sometimes because a lot of these things are different, as you say, from different embassies and different VFS offices. So that's kind of interesting. How about like the language? Do you speak Portuguese, Deb?
My family spoke Portuguese. My grandparents spoke Portuguese growing up. I grew up in an area that were high population of Portuguese people. So I grew up hearing it and listening it and speaking to some degree. So my comprehension, my listening level is excellent. And I'm getting better as we're here with a comfort level in speaking. I kind of default to, I understand exactly what someone's saying to me, but it's just natural to respond in English.
Yeah.
And they can tell, they know I understand the language because I've heard what they've said to me. And so sometimes they do me a favor and they say, no, in Portuguese. And so
That's
then,
nice. I love that. Yeah, because
then
it's
it
so
forces
easy just to
me
flip into English
stop
now. Yeah.
and say, okay, yes, let
Yeah.
me respond to you in Portuguese. So it's coming, but at least being able to understand is helpful. But here, I mean, so many people speak English. We just, I feel it's respectful and polite. If we're living here, I want to be far more fluent and comfortable speaking the language. And for Kathy, just at least have a basic level of being able to have a conversation in
I can,
Portuguese.
yeah, I can be polite and they
Yeah.
help and, and they understand it, shop owners, restaurants, most of the people on the street we don't usually talk to yet.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, I remember going on holiday when I just arrived in Portugal, and I obviously came from a non-Portuguese speaking place. I have no Portuguese family or anything, and I just when I went on holiday to England or to South Africa, I was like, oh, it's so nice to be able to speak English, not have that pressure of trying to speak Portuguese all the time. So it does get challenging, but you're right, it's so worthwhile, and it's so gratifying when you get a sentence right or something. You're like, yes, it's like a real tick in the box. So it's exciting doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to chat a little bit about like how you found your home, because the first video I ever made on this channel was called Where to Live in the Algarve. And a lot of people struggle with where to live because initially people, I think they thought that the Algarve was one resort, but it's, as you know, it's like this big place. And it's quite difficult to find the perfect spot. So how did you go about that whole process?
it's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we had been here for a brief time and it was many years prior.
1999.
But, yeah.
All right. Yeah.
So things have changed a lot, but there were certain things that struck us and that we knew were consistent, like the beauty of it. And as I mentioned before, we knew for us, although we've heard Tavira as an example is very nice in the eastern Algarve. For us, there's the drama and the beauty of the cliffs in the kind of the central to western Algarve were narrowed it for us as part. And then it was a matter of looking at, what some of the towns and larger towns and smaller towns along the coast were. I was very drawn to Lagos for a number of reasons in this area. Just because I find it's a nice balance of offering a lot and yet still maintaining a lot of Portuguese authenticity and still having a lot of Portuguese people here. Because the Algarve is, not overrun, but there's a lot of non-Portuguese population here.
Yeah, 20%. 20% foreigners down here, yeah.
Yeah.
Almost.
We didn't want to live, inland in Portugal because we wanted to be by the ocean, and yet we wanted to have an more authentic experience. So that was part of it. It kind of narrowed our focus, but we had a pretty wide swath of the coast that we were looking at.
We started in Salema and made our way through to Cavoeiro.
Yeah, that was kind of we were open to anything that made sense along there. And, then
with a big heavy population of Portuguese in Portimao, obviously. So that solves that problem.
Portimao didn't do it for us.
Just in terms of living directly in Portimao,
yeah,
we weren't. But we're actually where we ended up is kind of triangulated between Lagos and Portimao. So we have the access to both of the areas, which is great for everything you need to live a life. You have easy access to, and yet, services and things like that. And yet we're far enough away from those things that we have, kind of
we didn't know
peace
that
and quiet.
We started the search.
Yeah.
Looked at a lot of beautiful apartments with a lot of beautiful views, but nothing felt quite right because of all the construction. So you have a view today, but maybe not tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And
that's
that
something
was,
to really bear in mind. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and Nick and Duart were very helpful.
They were awesome.
Also knowing that's where you have to trust resources, because when you're looking at things online, you're looking at listings from another, from the various realtors and I didn't even realize, as an example, sometimes they'll put photos of apartments that aren't really the apartment that's for sale. There are things that are done here, and there's nothing inappropriate about it. It's just how it's done here. They use examples versus in the States where you would have the actual photos. So Nick and Duart were helpful in helping us understand the differences between different areas
Mhm.
and the kind of personalities of the different areas. Villamora is and Quartera are very different than Lagos and Portimao. Olhão is very different than Salema. So helping us
Right.
understand those areas and personality. And then once they got to know us, they did a great job kind of helping to match us up and felt like we were honing in on the right area.
So one day you just drove past Mejloé Grand and said, "That's it."
Nope.
No, we had been out with Nick for several days. We had provided a list of properties that we thought we wanted to see. And we were pretty convinced that we wanted either an ocean view or to be right on the ocean. We were fairly convinced of that. And most of the properties on our spreadsheet reflected that. And they made all the appointments and we saw them. And as Kathy said earlier, we found many that we liked, but none that we loved.
And
we
those
were
ocean
waiting to
views were
select one
what
that we liked.
more or less around Lagos, that area, right? And
More or less
Luge.
around Lagos, Luge. We liked
Yeah.
Luge a lot.
Yeah,
Burgao.
Right.
That we kind of ended up honing in, I think, in that general area, which is pretty tight, as you know. And then one afternoon, we had seen a property in Portimao with Duarte, and he said, "Would you allow me to show you something different?" And we had spent a couple
Well,
of
he
days
told
with
us.
him,
Yeah, well, he
and
showed that the day before. Yeah.
and he mentioned it, and we said sure. So we made a phone call, and we came to see this property, which was very different from everything we had looked at. We don't have an ocean view, although on the property we have an ocean view from our.
I see the ocean every day. Every single day I'm here, I look at the ocean. So
We have a view from the property.
Yeah.
We don't have a view from our townhouse,
Okay.
but
So you walk up to the top, Kathy, and then check it out, right? Is it
yes, I do. That's what the dogs come in for.
yeah.
yeah. Absolutely.
But we came to see it with Duarte that afternoon, and it's literally it's farther inland than anything else we had seen. You have to go through these. You drive through these avocado fields as you're entering the property, and it's just this beautiful landscape that almost looks like it reminded me of Tuscany with vineyards and they're not wine, they're not grapevines, but they're avocado plants. And once you get to the property, it's up on a hill and you see for miles. We can see
We can see Lagos.
Monchique,
Lagos.
we see Lagos, we see
Portimao.
so the view is
Fantastic.
incredible. It's just a
Wow.
different view. It's a view of the beautiful land. And it's very much countryside. It's not populated. And as soon as we opened the door and saw the view, we were captivated. And
I know,
then
sometimes I think that countryside views are actually more attractive than ocean views. I mean, it's lovely to be on the ocean, but you do get that sort of harshness of the ocean weather where you get a sort of softness in the countryside. And like you say, you can see the ocean if you want to, but we're the same here in Salbras in the middle of the hills. There's a little sliver of the ocean through the hills that you can see if you stand on tippy toes.
Yeah.
So our real estate agent, when I arrived, just said, "Look, you've got an ocean view." No, we don't really, bro.
Yeah. But go ahead.
he was, one of the things we spent quite a bit of time here in the unit that day. And he was absolutely right. He became aware of this property helping someone else. And he was absolutely right. The peacefulness of it. I mean, literally just the gentle breezes and largely all you hear are the birds and nature, and it's just incredibly peaceful. And for us, realizing we can be to any one of 8 beaches within a 10-minute drive.
We're less than 10 minutes to Maya Praia
Wow,
And
that's beautiful.
in the car.
And that's a
And
great
we're on
place
the
to
boardwalk.
take the dogs, huh? A great
Yes.
place to
Yeah.
take the dog.
and
Okay.
we're
So here's a
5
quick
or 6
question.
minutes to Lagos. We're 8 minutes to Portimao. But yet, one of the things starting to head into the busy season, one of the things that we think has been a good decision in the property is we can go to those places, but when it does get busy, we can come back here where it's not busy and it's peaceful and it's very much local people living here, countryside, quiet.
That's a very important point because you don't want to be living in that mess, in the tourist mess.
Not for us. Again, to your question earlier
We didn't know
about
that though.
you asked about the villages, and to us to live, and everyone's different. They're looking for different things, but to us to live like in the middle of Albufeira or Portimao, where in the summer it gets very busy with a lot of tourists and it gets a little wild, that's just not what we're looking for. So, and some people it's exactly what they're looking for, but we know that it wasn't for us. And just even with Duarte, one of the things I told him was, we sent all these properties and they were great to show us everything we wanted to see. We thought we knew what we wanted, but once we found this, we realized what we needed, and it was this.
And the dogs have got a beautiful place to run up in the hills there. Okay.
They do.
So now, how did you get the dogs across the Atlantic? Because there are many, many different options, right?
Yes.
You could. This is from. I mean, you guys know better answers to this than I do. But there's the Queen Mary. Did you look at that option?
Yes, we did.
You'd be surprised. We actually did look at taking an ocean cruise and making our transition year part of the adventure, and having a relocation cruise. And there are those that are offered, and you can do it you could take a month to 3 months. We did look at that as an option, but for a variety of reasons, that didn't make sense.
Well, the easiest reason is that they have to stay in a kennel.
Yes.
So they're
Oh,
not
really?
with
The
us.
whole time?
Right.
Yeah, in your room or in a kennel.
Yeah,
And
no, they can't stay in our room.
Yeah.
No, they had to be in the kennel, and you could only visit them a certain amount of time. That didn't make any sense. So
Okay. So and do you remember the costs of it, like more or less?
For the relocation cruises?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would take 1 month. I mean, it'd be just basically New York to
no, it was
Europe,
about
right?
5 days.
Well,
5
you could
days,
go
huh?
as quickly as 5 or 8 days, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
And
the ports that they come in are not like to Lisbon, or maybe they were. It got a little harder.
it was,
Okay.
I will say, at the end of the day, the cruise would have been less expensive, not by much, but it would have taken more time and not been
That's convenient.
not been as convenient, and not been as kind of easy and healthy for the dogs.
Okay, well, obviously, coming over the Atlantic, you can't take a train, you can't take a bus. So, I mean, that's obvious.
Yeah.
So we
So
started.
you got to fly, right?
Yes,
So-
we have to fly.
There are a couple of options on a plane, aren't there? I mean, apparently you can take a dog next to you in the seat. Is that correct?
No.
Well, it's not that easy. So our dogs are just a little too big to fit in a crate that goes underneath the seat. And both of them, well, actually one of them he gets too anxiety and he's too stressed. And for him to be in a commercial flight in that containment under either in cargo, which isn't happening, or even in the top of the plane, that wasn't going to happen because it would have been stressful for us. It would have been stressful for them. And then it's a crapshoot with what personnel you get on the ground and in the plane.
Oh.
So there was just too many unknowns that we had no control over.
So, Kathy, what are your options? Did you say above you in the hold above,
no,
or
In the cabin.
underneath
in
your
the
seat in
cabin
the
or
cabin?
in the cargo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
So the only way now, and I contacted every airline I could think of that flew into Lisbon, and then we started to even look at airlines that didn't fly into Lisbon that would fly somewhere else close in Spain, and then we would drive. Well, so we looked at a lot of options for any airline that would allow us to bring the dogs in the cabin with us, and we're happy to buy a seat or 2 seats for them, but what we knew we couldn't do was we weren't willing to put them underneath in cargo, and we weren't able, because of their size, to put them where most of the airlines would require you keep them for 7 hours in a very small thing under the seat. So once we realized that those weren't options, and there was no one that would let us buy a seat, the only way we could get them in the cabin is if we had them certified as service animals, and they have to go through training and get a certification. We didn't have time for that. And we just, they're not performing
that
a
was
service.
that was still too much of a crapshoot for us.
Yeah. So
For us.
we found that there are now airlines that recognize that this is a challenge, because where you used to be able to buy a seat and take your dog, whether it's a emotional support animal, whatever it is, in the cabin with you, you can't anymore. So airlines are now specializing in this, and we found at least 2. I'm sure there may be more, but we found 2. One was called Bark Air, and one was called Canine Jets. And they basically market themselves as transporting, the furry animals along with their humans. And that's
High
the route
priority
that
for
we
the
ended up-
animals there. Yeah. That's lovely.
Yes, we ended up going that route.
And so where did you take off and where did you land? And was it like a big jumbo jet or what was
No,
it?
so just to kind of keep this going here, Deb actually ended up flying TAP, and I flew on K9 Jets. So we went out of Newark. So
Okay.
K9 Jets flies out of Teterboro, which is about 20 minutes from the Newark airport. So Deb left before I did on the commercial flight, and then I flew private on the K9 Jets with 2 dogs. So I had 1 seat and 2 dogs, and in the plane there were 10 adults and 11 dogs.
Okay. So
And it worked out perfectly. It was probably, we would do it again. I mean, because flying on a private jet like that, your luggage is very restricted because it's a very small plane. And we still had luggage to come with us. So Deb took all of that commercial, and she was able to then get here a little bit earlier than we did because it was very bad rain
oh right.
on that day too. So get the rental car and the luggage and everything because it was such an early flight. So, but I left Teterboro at 6 or 7 p.m. and 6 hours later, we had landed in Lisbon. It was
You went
probably
direct to Lisbon. That's fantastic.
direct,
Yeah.
direct. It was the fastest way you can get here.
That's
It was-
amazing. Yeah.
It was amazing. Service was fabulous, and it was concierge service all the way through, from soup to nuts, all the way through the airport, raining and everything else. They got us dry from their terminal all the way through to the vet. They got us into the vet, and they had to bring the vet in early because the flight came in early, and they did everything they needed to do. I came
They don't
out,
have to
the
put
luggage
the
was
dogs out.
available.
They don't have to sedate the dogs or anything like that. Or and what about toilets and toilet training and stuff like that? Is there a problem or not? Is it just work?
No, well, they do give you but it's 6 hours. Most of these dogs sleep more than that. So, and they're older. I mean, there was one tiny little dog on the flight that wore a belly band, and that was probably the noisiest little guy. But everybody else just chilled out. I have video of all the dogs just sleeping and just relaxing. And my 2 were on my lap at the beginning, and then they found their little spots behind my seat and on the ground. And it could not have been more comfortable to get here.
Yeah, at one
Fantastic.
point you showed me, because obviously I was on the TAP flight, but all the dogs are asleep.
Yeah.
The cabin of the plane is dark. The dogs are all just kind of laying around the floor, and the pilot or co-pilot or somebody had to get back to the restroom and just kind of climbed over the
They
dogs.
go, "Oh,
And
don't worry
Yeah, I
about
saw
it."
some of your photographs when you went for dinner. It was really cool. Yeah.
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 So
Ah.
it worked out well, and they were also very helpful. Not obviously just the transport part, but as Kathy was saying, there's a lot of documentation that you don't have to sedate the dogs or anything. There's no quarantine when they get here, but there is a lot of documentation that's required that our vet in the States had to complete. And the K9 Jets people were available, representatives were available to help us understand and make sure that was correct, because they do this all the time on both ends.
And inoculations
and
as
then
well,
once
right?
we got here.
Inoculations on the state side as well for the dogs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
To
like,
just make sure everything's up to date and everything that Portugal requires for
Mm-hmm.
dogs, they have to be chipped as an example, which our dogs were chipped, but you don't have to be chipped in the US, but here in Portugal, the
It's a
dogs
requirement. Yeah.
do have to
Yeah.
be. So they were just very helpful in that process. So for us, it really was the only viable option. But it
And
ended up being
most stress-free. Yeah.
yeah, it ended up being a great way to go.
Fantastic. And then while you've been here, hopefully you've had no problems with the dogs, but you have to have like a pet passport almost, don't you? And
That's
It's an interesting. We just got their pet passports. Actually,
Yeah.
that's something that's
it's
again,
not 100% complete yet.
yeah,
It's a process.
but that's something that you don't have in the States.
No.
And we went to the vet. We got acquainted with a vet in Portimao through a neighbor here. Great facility. We're very happy with them. Lovely people. And they mentioned it to us, and we were like, pet passports. And it's an unfamiliar concept, but particularly if you're traveling, from here into Spain, or if we go on road trips, which is part of our plan to take the dogs with us on road trips, the pet passport is actually required. So we're in the process of getting them their pet passports.
It's a cute name. It's a cute thing to have, isn't it? Yeah. But it's also good for the, obviously for the vets to see, the history of the animal and everything like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. So things are all going swimmingly with the pets. I hope it happens. Yeah, because I met them. They seem like gorgeous dogs. Really lovely.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Well, they are from Portugal, so
Yeah.
Yeah. What they weren't originally born here, right?
Yeah.
one was.
Gus, the male, they're both Portuguese pequeños. They're small. Gus was actually born here in Portugal. The breeder had him shipped to the States.
In Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah. And
Wow.
so he's actually returned home.
Nice. That must be wonderful for him.
He turned 10 last week.
Yeah.
Okay, one last quick subject before we got to go. Cars. You're buying a car. You bought it as it arrived yet.
We got it last
Sunday.
2 Sundays ago.
No, we just had a week, Sunday.
Okay.
Okay. So if you had advice for other people doing this, coming
Talk
from
to
the
Pedro.
States, talk to Pedro. Yeah, but would you suggest trying to ship your car or buy a car here?
No. I certainly. I mean, if you had something that was special, that was some kind of antique that you have to have, that's. But if you just have a car, there's the cost to ship it is not worth it. For us, again, it's about using resources that know what they're doing and trusting those resources. We came to know Pedro Bastos, and he just
Before
has
we left.
car consulting business.
Yeah, he's like, we've had him on the podcast and stuff. Yeah,
Yes.
Exactly.
he's
That's
actually a
how
personal friend of my wife's. So it's we've known him for years. Yeah.
That's how I became acquainted with him. I reached out to him. We had a phone conversation before we left the States, just to understand what services he provides and how he could help. And we thought we knew we were going to come to the Algarve and we're going to buy a new car. And we rented a car for a month to give us time to do that. And the more we thought about it, we said, we're just going to start driving around to dealerships in the Algarve. Like, we don't even know how to do that.
Yeah.
We talked to Pedro. He gave us in a
Because it's the dealerships
15-minute conversation.
Yeah.
He taught us so much. It was well worth working with him. We ended up buying a car through him from Germany. And we picked it up a Sunday, and we have it now. And we're thrilled. The whole process, he handled everything from helping us kind of figure out what we wanted, what we should have, and it met our needs, finding the exact vehicle, checking it out and make sure it works, getting it shipped from Germany, getting through customs, registering it, insuring it, delivering it. I mean, it was seamless, and I don't know how we would have done it not using him, frankly.
That's great to hear that Pedro came through. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It really is nice.
Yeah. That's been the case though with, as I said, we put a lot of effort into it. We put a lot of our own kind of sweat and time into a lot of research, but certainly through Nick and Duart, through Anna, Teresa, and through Pedro, those three in particular. And one of the concerns we had, frankly, in moving, I needed to make sure I understood the whole tax implication, financial aspect. We also came to talk to a tax professional that's here in Portugal, and that was very comforting and kind of calmed those concerns. So
It's a vital part of the
yeah.
puzzle, isn't it? But just
Yes.
quickly back to cars. The reason I went to Charlotte back in the day was my cousin actually used to live there in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he just went into a car dealership on a Saturday night and drove home with his car
Yeah.
and bought it. And
Yeah.
I was like, how can you do that? In Portugal, it takes like 3 months, or not 3 months, but 3 weeks. I'm actually just buying a brand new car, like a cheap little brand new car, and it's taking about 4 months for the thing to arrive. So, I mean, that
It
is
is.
abnormal, but buying
Still,
cars here
we
in
had
Portugal is
that
different.
expectation. Well, just go
Yeah.
in, buy it, and we go home with that night.
That's
Exactly.
what
Not here.
you do in the States.
Yeah.
We had no idea.
And it's funny because you asked about, some of the challenges, and Kathy mentioned, well, we've had more challenges in some ways since we've gotten here than when the process of getting here. And one of the challenges is recognizing it definitely takes longer to get things here. Like we didn't ship furniture, so we bought new furniture. And I would say we now have maybe 70% of our furniture. But we started that process a long time ago.
In
Again,
October.
in the States, we would have had everything in 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It's just not
Well,
the
I mean,
case.
it's difficult to say that without belittling Portugal, but things are really slow here, as you know. And I want to try and say this as many times as I can to everybody who's watching, because you've got to understand things are slow. They really are. And that's a lot of the reason why Portugal is so awesome as well. So it's, double-edged sword. You know what I mean?
that you want kind of the chill, laid back relaxation, except when you want your things, right?
Exactly.
So
When you get here, and you're like, where's the stuff?
if I could have the relaxation, except I want my things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we can't have it all. But anyway, I hope we see you guys soon. And
I hope so.
it's been so wonderful to have you on the video podcast. I really appreciate you guys sharing all this stuff. It's wonderful. So thank you so much.
It's our
Thank you.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
having
so
us.
much. We really enjoyed it. We're happy to be here.
Excellent. All right.
Let us know if we
See
can
you.
do anything for you, Nick.
Okay, for sure.
AlgarveAddicts.com